Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Priyanka and on this channel I talk everything about moving to Australia as a student, settling down here with your permanent residency, mixed with lots of real life tips that I share from my own experience and how you can live a happy, healthy and a sustainable life here. So this is also one of the most requested videos that I've got until now, that can we get a full-time job in Australia or not? The simple answer I would say is yes, you can get a full time job. And the long answer is everything that I will talk about in this video today. So, I really want to share about what are the challenges that people are facing, what are the challenges that I faced, how I landed my first full-time job in Australia, and how you can prepare yourself mentally to, until you land a full-time job. Let's get right into it. So, I would just quickly talk about my experience. I studied masters in business analytics and I had zero zilch experience in what business analytics or what a business analyst does back in India. I was studying my bachelor's in botany honors, decided that I want to study something that Australia actually requires, and went ahead with masters in business analytics. If you want to know more about this story, you can watch this video here. The link would be coming somewhere. And I started working in an Italian restaurant, and then COVID hit, pandemic hit, everything was shut, people were being laid off, companies didn't know how to survive when there's no one coming in their business, and restaurants and a few other essential businesses were the only ones that were working. So I took up that challenge as an opportunity and started getting more involved in the restaurant business, started helping my owner of that restaurant with social media management, understanding the numbers, understanding his business, and just putting myself more into his business until I had anything else to do, because with COVID, there was nothing that you could do. You couldn't go and travel, couldn't do anything, and Melbourne had one of the strictest lockdowns in the world. So we were not even able to go 5 kilometers beyond where we used to live. It was bad. It was really bad. So I started working as a social media manager as well, and I wasn't really being paid anything more. I remember there came a time when I was using my old Lenovo laptop that I had got from India, and it wasn't supporting with all the things that I had to do. And I, took a loan from my dad to buy a new MacBook. And I later, returned him the money when I got my full time job. But these are just some of the things that we had to go through, and me and my batchmates, we used to talk about that, how will we land a job. First of all, we don't have any business analytics experience on our resume, and okay, we don't have any experience, but the job market is also dead. Like, people with so much of experience were being laid off, and we felt like it's going to be very tough. Then slowly things started to ease out. We were past the pandemic now, businesses were opening, people were, starting to hire more, and I started getting interviews. Once I started getting interviews, I started getting rejections. First of all, it's so hard to actually land an interview, because you apply 100 to 150 jobs. Out of those, you get interviewed for two or three out of those, and then you receive rejection for those, and it's a cycle. So it just it's just a vicious cycle that doesn't stop, and you just feel that what is wrong with you, how can you solve this problem. And that is when I realized that I need to work on my resume. I started adding all my part-time work in a way that would really help the interviewee to understand what my skill set is. So how I started working as a social media uh, person in the restaurant. I wrote that as a social media analyst in my resume, and told my interviewee that this is how I helped the restaurant grow a bit more in numbers, reach out to more people, and try to improve the restaurant's revenue basically. So that's when I realized that I need to utilize the part-time experience that I have to be able to land a full-time job basically. So that's what I did. And again, when I used to write my resume and when I used to make it better, I used to understand it deeply so that I'm able to later explain that to my interviewer. I kept feeling that I have invested so much money and time in this course that I'm not even getting a job now. And I felt like, why would anyone hire me? I don't have any business analytics experience in my resume. And, what can I do to add more experience on my resume? So that's when I decided to tweak my restaurant experience and other jobs where I had worked and write them in a way that is actually helpful for the interviewee to understand why I am applying, bringing them the skills that they actually need and writing them in a way in your resume that actually resonates with the person who's looking at your resume. I also made sure that I always use STAR technique in my interviews because it helps you structure the answers of your interview questions properly and to articulate what you're actually trying to say. Back when I was in Melbourne, I still kept getting rejections, and I didn't know how to get out of that circle of tailoring your resume, applying a job, going for interview, getting rejected. And that's when I realized maybe I need to move away from Melbourne because felt like none of my other friends were getting a job, and I felt like maybe Melbourne is really currently, saturated with talent because when there was COVID, there were already people who had completed their masters before me, and even they were not getting a job. So there was a surplus of talent and not as much demand, especially especially in Melbourne, I felt. So I decided to move from Melbourne to Canberra because Canberra had easier rules for settling down here with your permanent residency. So I was like, okay, I'm not getting a job. I might try my hand at getting my permanent residency first, and maybe then I will get a job because most of the jobs did require you to be a resident. And that's when I realized that, okay, I will take this big risk. Although I have built all my connections and my networks here in Melbourne now after coming from Delhi, it's okay. I feel like sometimes when you have to land a job, you have to take some risks, and my risk was huge because I had made all my networks, my contacts, my friends in Melbourne for 4 years. Uprooting myself completely again and settling in Canberra was a very difficult process. But looks like my hard work paid off because as soon as I came here and kept applying jobs, within 4 to 5 months, I was working as a business analyst. So, and I feel that the truth is it's unpredictable. It matters a lot on you, how many jobs you're applying every day, what kind of a person you are, what kind of soft skills you have, and as well as it depends a little bit on the luck as well. Like, cool, so this was just a quick background story about myself and how I landed my first job full time here in Australia. Now let's talk about what is the situation of the current job market here in Australia and what are the things that you should know. So after COVID hit, companies struggled. No company had, any budget for hiring. There was no money. Layoffs were happening everywhere. And, businesses were struggling big time. And I feel like now that things are getting back to normal, companies are, having budgets again, and, people are getting jobs a lot. But I still feel that there's a huge surplus of talent in the market, and there's not as much demand yet created already. Although the job market has improved a lot, but it's still not back to where it used to be. And if you've been on LinkedIn, you might have seen that there have been so many layoffs happening. And I feel like after pandemic, the things are now becoming back to normal, but they still are not where they used to be. There's a huge surplus in the market, and there isn't still that much of demand created where it used to be pre-pandemic. And I feel like AI has also shaken up a lot of roles, making a lot of positions redundant. I would say that the reality is that it's still very hard out there to land a job, especially if you're an immigrant. I'm sure you know how it feels to be ghosted by an HR. I definitely do. And I do feel that there's a lot of luck involved as well. But as they say, luck is when opportunity meets hard work. So I feel that it's not just about waiting for the right moment, it's also about being ready for when that moment comes to you. That's what I feel I have realized, and that's what also happened in my case. Whenever I was rejected after an interview, I would, ponder upon and think about what would have gone wrong because they never give you any feedback why you weren't selected. It's mostly about, yeah, they got a better candidate, but what was lacking in you, You have to understand that. So making sure that you're always a little bit better than your last interview, always making sure that you're tailoring your resume and adding those keywords that are written in the job description, so that you have more closer chances of cracking the interview. And always making sure that you use star technique, which is situation, task, action, and results. How did you handle it? That's very important, because I feel employers are expecting smart people, and they're just expecting someone who's reliable, efficient, and effective at their work. So you have to make sure that how can you articulate these qualities to them in that short interview. So I would say that, if you are someone who's currently struggling to find a job here in Australia, or if you're just someone who is currently thinking that will I ever land a job, I will say that you will, but it will depend on how and when, I have friends who applied just one job and they cracked it, they got it. I have friends who are still applying and haven't got a job. So, you would always be somewhere there in the middle. You'll apply a few jobs, you'll get rejected, but eventually you will get what you're meant to. So don't lose hope, keep applying. When people ask me, will I get a job, will I get my PR when I come to Australia, if I do this course, will I get a job? My simple answer is I don't know. I can only say things from my own experience and what I have gone through. And that's why I've made this channel, to be able to share what I went through in a very transparent format. And that might just give you an idea as to how your life will look like when you come here. I am not an immigration consultant, so I cannot tell you whether doing this course will get you PR or not, or whether doing this course will get you a job or not. But what I can tell you is that if you do your own thorough research after, even watching this video is a research that you're currently doing. So kudos to you that you're watching such content and trying to understand how the life of people who went there turned out to be like mine. And I'm sure you're looking at other videos as well. So keep doing this kind of research that you're doing, understanding people's perspectives and how their lives turned out, and also do your own thorough research. What you have to do is search whether that course is relevant in Australia or not, whether people or whether Indians or whichever country you're planning to come from have landed a job in that field or not. These things will make you understand whether the field that you're planning to study is still relevant in Australia or not. And I would say that the truth is, all these things are very unpredictable, especially with this cap on international students and the housing crisis that currently Australia is facing. But I would say that if you're someone who's planning to put in the right type of hard work, prepare yourself mentally, and you're ready to challenge yourself and take some risks, you will definitely achieve that success. I also read this somewhere that yes, the elevator to success is out of order. You have to take the stairs. So that just means that you have to take the difficult route to be successful. You cannot just take an easy route and think that you will be successful. So it's okay if you're currently struggling, and it's okay if you're currently uncertain about job or PR, but just make sure that you choose the right field, and I think things would turn out completely fine. I also have a community where I constantly post about how to land a full time job, what employers expect from you, and a lot more insider tips. So, if you're really interested, you can join it by clicking on the link in my description box. And I'm also planning to keep a Q&A session with me. So, that would be just a member only event. So, if you're a member of the community, you can definitely join that Q&A with me and ask me any questions. So at the end, here's my advice. If you're planning to move to Australia, plan it well, look into things properly, make sure that the course you're doing is in very high demand, especially if you're hoping for PR. Also consider the housing market. Cost of living is very high and finding a house is not easy. At the end, I would just say that you've got this. The journey might feel really tough, but the reward at the end is amazing. If I can go from working in a restaurant to now working as a senior business analyst at KPMG and living my life on my own terms, you can do it too. It just requires a little bit of resilience, patience, and a lot of determination. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this helpful, please hit that like button and consider subscribing. And if you would like to understand a little bit more in detail about part time jobs, you can watch this video here. Thank you, and I will catch you in the next one.